What started off as a very happy-go-lucky episode with a very warm feeling turns into one of the saddest episodes yet of March Comes In Like a Lion. Well, we all knew this had to be tackled eventually. We knew we had to get the backstory of our main male character, Ray. It had to happen because we still haven't been clarified to all the things that happened, all the things he felt. And this is what this episode was for. It started off with happy tone, turned into a dark tone, and it stayed that way throughout the entire episode. So, Ray is a character. We knew he had some form of very tragic past. I mean, we know his family wasn't there because they died. We know he was adopted. We know he picked up shogi. We know he was lonely. We know some of these basic things about him, like the foundation blocks, but we didn't know what really drove him throughout his childhood. For instance, what made him him that he is today. And we see the emotions he felt and how conflicted he was throughout his youth when he was growing up, and what really forced him to mature in a way to where he's at right now, to where he's not actually a child anymore. He acts like an adult. And the reason for this is because of his upbringing. But let's go to the very, very beginning. Ray had a younger sister, and, you know, as always, he cared deeply for his younger sister. The sad thing is the happy tone of this episode was built up for that sad tone. Momo is very much alike Ray's sister, his younger sister that died. And when he's helping out Momo, he's fixing her up, cleaning her up, and all that after falling down. Everything seems to be fine. But then he has a flashback. He remembers, and his heart kind of opens up a little bit because he remembers the feelings he had. He remembers his younger sister. He felt their cold bodies. That was a sad moment, especially when you saw him looking at his parents and his younger sister, and you just see their body there, covered up, and you see the size difference between the younger sister and the parents. It just like, fuck, dude, that's some powerful shit, like, damn, because seeing the size difference and the way this poor boy, he lost his family like that, just instantly thanks to a car crash, makes you sad. You're like, damn it, dude, this shit happens. It does happen every day, I mean, to people, and when you see something like this, it makes you really sad and just feel really bad for people that go through these type of experiences, but also Ray in general, because this poor boy, I mean, he had to cope with losing his entire family. He was the only one left. And the bad thing is when he was at the funeral, and you know what a funeral's for, it should be to say your farewells to your family. That's kind of what a funeral should be for. Your final thoughts, you know, just wish them a farewell. But his funeral for his parents were not like that. You had to where a bunch of his relatives overall were just having infighting, fighting over inheritance, the traditional stuff you would see, and overall, the rage I got from one of the characters throughout this episode really, really got to me. And it was the one scene with the sister. I think she was the sister of the father, and whoever she was, though, she was related to our main male character, Ray. She was talking to her father, and she's like, oh, don't worry, we'll find a good orphanage for Ray, while she holds her child in her arm. And that is what really, really pissed me off. It wasn't the fact that she said that, such an awful thing at the funeral. It was the fact that she was holding, I'm assuming, her son, her child, and while holding her child, she says such a despicable and awful thing about someone that's related to her, say, oh, we'll give him a good orphanage. And I'm like, you are someone that doesn't deserve to be a fucking mother. You are a horrible excuse for a human fucking being. To say something like that, while you know how it feels to care for your own child, if your child was to become alone, would you want that shit done to your child? And that really pissed me off. Now, like I said, I'm not mad with this episode. I'm not mad with the writing or anything. I just, personally, it just got my feelings worked up because of that one scene. I'm like, yo, how fucked up as a person are you to be holding your own child and then say that about someone else's child that is related to you, saying, I want to put them in a good orphanage. Like, what the fuck? If that was to happen to your child, you would be probably pissed off too, unless you're a really, really shitty human being, which you might be. So, that right there, that scene, I know many might have overlooked that scene or might have pushed past that scene because there was other important things to the episode, but that scene really pissed me off. Like, I really got mad with that character. But regardless of that, though, let's talk about what the scene meant in general. So Ray, he's by himself, and we get to see some, conflicts in his mind of how he realizes he's never gonna be alone. He went through his entire year never have a moment to feel relief. He was always having someone with him, around him, and he never got to experience that by himself, like just alone time. And you have it to where over all these times that passed on, he just wanted to be alone. He wanted to just experience this relief and all that, because he didn't want to be around people and hear what they think or their shitty attitudes or whatever. He wanted to be alone. And then eventually you had it to where his father's friend came up and pretty much adopted him. And it wasn't the traditional type of adoption you would see. It was actually a lie. And this was the sad thing about all of it. We see before the parents' death and Ray's sister's death, we see how he's playing a game with this person. And this person is the same old man we see a couple episodes back that Ray bested. And Ray sees this man walk up to him. And they're playing shogi before the parents die. And everything seems to be fine. Even you have it to where Ray beats him. I mean, he's like, oh, I was beat. You play a lot like your father. Like, your shogi is very, very similar to how your father's is. And we get to see the connection, how Ray is very similar to his father when he was a part of, the Shogi Federation, how he was, doing that type of stuff. But now he gave it up because he was having to be a doctor, take over the family hospital because of his father wanted him to. So he kind of gave up his dream for the sake of his own father. But getting back into the Shogi stuff, after time has passed, this person that played with Ray, with Shogi, he comes up to him and says, hey, you want to be my apprentice? And this is when the lie started. Ray, he lied to himself, he lied to everyone else before he could continue on living. That's what really happened here. He lied to himself and he believed his own lie because he didn't want to be in an orphanage. He didn't want to, experience the things that was about to happen. And so this man, when he says, you want to be my apprentice, he said yes. And this wasn't a traditional type of adoption. I mean, I've seen a couple of shows have it to where a person wants to be an apprentice to a person, like a character, and then they become the apprentice and they move in and live with this person. That's kind of what happened with Ray. He wasn't necessarily adopted, so he didn't have the rights of, an actual child underneath him, but the person, the old man, still cared a lot for him, treated him like a good person should. He didn't treat him like a piece of shit, which I was very proud of. I thought that this old person would actually have treated Ray with no respect at all because of the interactions they had earlier on in this series. But that wasn't the case. There was a lot more of complicated issues surrounding this situation, and that would be the children. Now, as always, adoptions or, moving into someone's house could rather be messy. That's how it is. And on both sides, I understand Ray's viewpoint of what he wanted to do and why he felt like he felt. I understand his thoughts. But at the same time, I understand the children's thoughts too and why they were reacting like they were. Now, I don't condone the part about, the bullying or seeing the older sister, beating the shit out of Ray. I don't condone that. I don't say that's a good thing to do. I'm just saying, I understand both sides for different reasons. And let's get into Ray's side and then I'll get into the other side. Ray, as a character, he realized his, interaction with the family was kind of toxic. He was someone that was draining the life out of the family. He was slowly having his, roots intertwined around the family and just choking them to death as he was becoming a better shogi player, because he became an apprentice in a person's house that was a part of professional shogi. So he eventually, he engrossed himself into playing shogi, he got better at it, and eventually got so good he beat the children that had been born and raised to play shogi. And of course this is not gonna, sit right with many of them, especially the children that throughout their entire life they've been, growing up playing shogi, trying to get better at it to become pros, and when this kid comes in out of nowhere and beats you, it's gonna upset you. It's straight up gonna upset you. And Ray realizes what he was doing. He was in a gray area. That's where he was. He was very gray because he didn't know what he should do, because it's not necessarily his fault, but he knows because of what has happened it is. You can't blame him for being there, but at the same time know what is going on in him playing shogi and being that good. In a way, it is his fault. And so it's a very gray area for his character and the way he realized what he was doing, and eventually he wanted to progress down a path to where he could quickly get out of the house and not completely consume and kill this family, because what's going on is he's just not helping them at all. He's ruining all the relationships because if he would continue to be a part of this family, he might have strained the relationships where the daughter might not ever want anything to do with her father or the son as well. So he got out of there as fast as possible because he knew what he was doing was not good. Now, speaking of the other children, their perspective on this, I can understand why they were very upset, why they were kind of mean to Ray. Now, I don't, agree with how she says, oh, why are you calling him father? You're just an apprentice. I don't agree with that. But at the same time, though, you gotta realize she's a kid. And as a kid, you're gonna say some stupid fucking shit. You're gonna say some shit that you normally wouldn't say if you're a mature adult. And, she obviously isn't. And, I mean, you gotta realize from her perspective, this random boy pops up in their house, moves in, plays shogi, beats your younger brother, just demolishes his motivation to be a shogi player, and then he demolishes you, and then your father says you can't be a professional shogi player and all that. So, you gotta realize from this perspective of how she feels, and why she reacted like she did, because if that's all you knew and someone came in and just trampled all over it, you'd be pretty pissed off, you would. Just don't even try it tonight. If someone walked in and was good at something that you've been training to do your entire life, and then they stomped on it, and then your father started giving recognition to this person, you would get angry. There's just no denying that. You cannot say you would not be angry. So, she getting angry, like her getting angry, it makes sense. I'm fine with that. And once again, I gotta say, she is also in a gray area too. There's some actions I disagree with, but overall, though, it makes sense because of her position and why she's, doing what she's doing. So, overall, the episode, it really, really shows us why Ray is like he is, and how lonely he is, how depressed he is, and how he doesn't really have anything he cares about besides shogi, because the only thing he really had was shogi. I mean, he knew that he was like his father when it came to playing shogi, and I mean, the only thing he really had going for him throughout his life was that, so he decided to dive into books all about shogi, research and all that, just to get his mind off of anything else, all this sad stuff that's going on around him, and it's tragic. So, yeah, March comes in like a lion. A really good series. I really have to compliment this show for telling such a very deep story, especially with the characters and their backstory. Good job. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.